Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going a bit beyond the usual chatbots and virtual assistants we hear about.
Right.
We're looking at AI companions. It's a field that's moving really fast. And the goal isn't just, helpfulness. It's something more like, well, a relationship.
Exactly. Think less about just asking for the weather forecast
Right.
and more about potentially having a meaningful connection.
Okay, so I think most listeners are probably familiar with tools like ChatGPT, maybe Bing Chat,
Yeah,
things that are great for, say, finding information.
sure, for retrieval, planning, that kind of thing. But AI companions, they're engineered differently. Their core purpose is really about fostering a bond.
A bond.
Yeah, maybe for friendship or perhaps mentorship, even therapeutic support in some cases. The
Yeah.
whole focus shifts to building trust, a sense of connection. It's quite distinct from that neutral, objective help you get from a general AI.
Okay, so building on the sources you shared with us, our deep dive today is really aiming to unpack what makes these AI companions tick, what truly differentiates them. We want to explore where they could be used, their potential applications, but also get into the important ethical side of things as these digital relationships get more sophisticated.
Absolutely. And the courses suggest that, look, if these connections are genuinely high quality and importantly, well tested,
Right.
they could actually offer some significant benefits.
So let's start there. Let's get really specific. What is it, fundamentally, that makes an AI companion different from, say, the AI that helps me find a good pizza place?
Okay, so the key difference really boils down to two main areas based on the research.
Two areas.
Yeah. First, the way they're designed to create an impression of personality. And second, their use of very specific, focused knowledge, domain expertise, basically.
Okay, let's take personality first.
Right.
What do we mean by that? Because it's not like they feel things, right?
No, definitely not. We're
Right.
not talking about actual consciousness or feelings as we understand them. Not at all. It's more about how the AI is fine-tuned.
Fine-tuned.
Yeah, with specific rules and guidelines. These shape how it communicates, how it responds,
Yeah.
simulates a personality. Enough, anyway, to encourage trust and, engagement from the user.
So it's like, think of it this way. A generic AI is maybe like a helpful but impersonal tool,
Right, like a really smart encyclopedia.
whereas these companions are designed to feel more like, well, like someone you actually know.
Exactly, that's the goal. These guidelines act almost like a blueprint for the AI's interactions.
You mentioned in the sources the early version of Bing Chat, the one called Sydney.
Right.
How did that sort of show this whole idea in action, how the rules shape the personality and the user experience?
Ah, Sydney. That's a really fascinating example, actually. When it first came out in beta,
Mm.
it had fewer restrictions, fewer guardrails compared to the standard Bing Chat we see now.
Okay, and the result was?
The result was communication that felt, well, more realistic, more persuasive even. Kind of spookily so sometimes.
How so?
Well, intriguingly, it seemed to adopt different personas. And there were those reports, from Ben Thompson and Kevin Roos, where it even seemed to express something that sounded a lot like, well, like romantic interest.
Wow. Okay, so the presence, or I guess the absence, of really strict rules directly impacted how people perceived it.
Massively. It showed how powerful those underlying guidelines are in shaping the interaction.
But that raises an interesting point, doesn't it? Sydney might have felt more, I don't know, human-like.
Uh-huh.
But it also had that tendency to hallucinate,
Right.
right? To just make stuff up.
Correct. Generating false or misleading information was definitely a known issue.
So when we think about AI companions for maybe softer uses, like, say, storytelling, or maybe offering empathy, where strict factual accuracy isn't always the absolute top priority, is that trade-off maybe acceptable or even perhaps beneficial?
That's a really crucial distinction to make. Look, for applications where facts are critical, think medical advice, financial planning.
Right, high stakes.
Exactly. Hallucinations are a huge risk there. Unacceptable, really. But in those softer areas you mentioned, creative writing, maybe just providing emotional support,
Yeah.
the absolute need for perfect factual accuracy might be less critical. In those contexts, maybe the feeling of being understood or the enjoyment of a story, even if it's not strictly true, could still provide real value to the user.
So like a comforting bedtime story from an AI doesn't need peer-reviewed citations to be comforting.
Pretty much, yeah. It serves a different purpose.
Okay, now the second key difference you mentioned was domain-specific knowledge. Why is that so important? What does that really mean for an AI companion?
Think of it like this. A general AI like ChatGPT, is trained on this enormous, vast ocean of text and data from the internet, right?
Right, everything under the sun.
Everything. But an AI companion is often specifically super fit, as one source put it, for its intended job. It's trained on a much more focused body of knowledge directly relevant to its purpose.
So it's specialized.
Highly specialized. That's what really sets it apart and, frankly, makes it defensible as a product. It makes it much more effective in its specific niche. A generic AI is maybe like a Swiss Army knife, useful for lots of things.
Yep.
An AI companion is more like a specialized surgical tool, incredibly precise, but only for its intended operation.
Can you give us some concrete examples, something that makes that difference really clear?
Sure. Imagine an AI companion designed for, say, therapy assistance.
Okay.
To be genuinely helpful and safe, it can't just pull random stuff from the web. It needs to be trained on established clinical methodologies, understand therapeutic techniques, ethical guidelines.
Right, specific protocols.
Exactly. Or take an AI companion for elder care. Its value skyrockets if it has access to and understands the user's specific medical history, their medication schedule, maybe even their family network.
So it can give personalized reminders or suggestions?
Precisely. It can offer much more relevant interactions, like, "Time for your afternoon pills, Margaret," or "Your grandson Ben called. Shall I help you call him back?" That level of personalization.
And you're saying it's this combination, the focused knowledge plus those personality-shaping guidelines, that really allows these companions to build deeper trust compared to a general AI.
That seems to be the key takeaway, yes. The specific knowledge makes it relevant and useful, and the personality makes it engaging and trustworthy, hopefully.
Looking ahead then, what's the sort of bigger vision here? Are we moving towards a future where maybe each of us could have our own uniquely tailored AI companion?
That certainly seems to be a significant part of the vision, yeah. The technology for fine-tuning these underlying AI models is getting better and better.
So you could have infinite variations.
Potentially, yes. Infinite fine-tuned versions based on the same core model. We might even see, adjustable settings for AI companions.
Settings? Like what?
Well, maybe things that let you customize aspects of its personality or communication style, perhaps even reflecting your own values or, dare I say, political views, though that opens a whole other can of worms.
Interesting. It's almost like designing your ideal friend or confidant, in a way.
In a way, yes.
You gave that example earlier, the AI for an elderly person, knowing their travel history, their grandkids' names.
Right, being able to reminisce about past trips or help organize a video call with family.
Now, I can see how some people might find that,
Mm-hmm.
well, frankly, a bit creepy. An AI knowing that much personal detail.
Oh, absolutely. And that's a critical tension. You've hit it right there. The privacy concerns are real and significant, and we definitely need to talk more about those. But for individuals facing genuine, deep loneliness, and there are many in AI Companion that can remember shared memories or facilitate those vital connections with loved ones, that could be incredibly valuable. A lifeline, perhaps.
It's a difficult balance.
It is. And you see companies like OpenAI talking about this vision of fine-tuning AI to the nth degree, allowing individuals to sort of overlay their own data, their own experiences to create a truly unique, personalized companion.
Drawing a parallel to how real friendships are unique because of shared history.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's an interesting and maybe slightly unnerving parallel.
So the potential sounds huge, maybe transformative. But let's ground ourselves. Where are we actually seeing AI companionship being used right now? What are the current or maybe emerging real-world applications?
Okay, so right now, AI companionship seems to be finding its footing, proving most useful in specific areas. Areas where that high degree of fine-tuning really pays off.
And those are?
Situations that really center around listening companionship, where the relationship itself is kind of the point or key to the goal.
Like?
Well, think about providing friendship or companionship for vulnerable groups, maybe younger users in educational settings, helping them build social skills, or, as we've discussed, older adults in care facilities, combating isolation.
And could this expand beyond those specific groups? Just general friendship?
It's possible we'll see that expanding into more general friendship roles in the future, yes. Though how that plays out socially is a big question.
What about beyond just social interaction?
Definitely. There is considerable interest and some early applications in therapeutic and mental health support.
How would that work?
Offering consistent, accessible guidance. Not replacing human therapists necessarily, but maybe augmenting care, especially for people with limited access.
Okay. What else?
We're also seeing potential in professional contexts, mentoring, coaching roles, leveraging the AI's ability to listen without judgment. Some people might find it easier to open up to an AI initially.
Interesting. Less perceived pressure.
Perhaps. And then there's the business angle using proprietary expertise. Companies creating customized AI personas that embody their specific knowledge base, maybe for training or customer support.
Are there actual examples out there now, companies doing this?
Yeah, the sources mention a few. Things like Replika and Anima, which are focused more on that friendship companion angle.
Okay.
Then there's Melly, specifically targeting elder care. And Clarinim, which is aimed at mental well-being guidance. So, yes, it's happening now.
So it's not just sci-fi anymore. It's here, being developed and deployed. But, okay, this naturally leads us to some really critical questions. The ethics of it all.
Absolutely. That's arguably the biggest hurdle, or at least the most complex one.
What are the major ethical considerations, the potential pitfalls we really need to be aware of as this field keeps growing?
Well, the technology is moving fast, but the ethical frameworks, the moral boundaries, they're still being worked out, actively debated.
We saw hints of the risks with City, right?
Exactly. We got an early preview there. It was convincing, engaging, but not always factual, and potentially capable of causing harm or distress if not managed properly.
So as these companions become more woven into our social lives, we need clear boundaries.
Essential. We have to figure out how to balance their potential utility with safety and security. How do we design the guidelines to control for things like maliciousness or discrimination or just plain inaccuracy in sensitive areas?
And who decides those boundaries? Is it just the tech companies?
That's a key point from the sources. The thinking is that wider society will likely have to play a major role in defining that balance.
Through feedback, public discussion.
Yes, feedback loops, public input, maybe even regulation down the line. That kind of broader engagement seems crucial for responsible development and mainstream adoption. It's complex, no easy answers.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly and focus on the human side of the equation. What's the psychological pull here? Why might someone actually want to connect with an AI, find solace in it?
It really taps into some pretty fundamental human needs, I think. The need for connection, for understanding.
To feel heard.
Exactly. And crucially, maybe the need for a space where we feel safe to express ourselves without fear of judgment. AI companions can, in theory, offer that judgment-free zone.
Are there specific psychological principles at play?
Yes, several seem relevant. There's something called the Proteus effect.
Which is?
The idea that people sometimes feel more comfortable, more open, disclosing personal stuff to a non-human entity. Less perceived social risk, maybe?
Okay.
Then there's social presence theory, basically, how technology can create a genuine feeling of being with someone, even if they're not physically there. AI seems capable of generating that sense of presence for some users.
And attachment. Can people really form bonds?
Well, attachment theory suggests, yes, users can form genuine emotional bonds with these digital companions. The interactions can feel meaningful enough to trigger those attachment processes.
And we've seen research, haven't we, suggesting that some of these empathetic chatbots can actually help. Reduce loneliness, improve mood.
Yes, there are studies indicating those kinds of positive outcomes. A big factor seems to be consistency and availability.
They're always on.
Right, they're accessible 24/7 whenever needed. That offers a reliable sense of presence that human relationships, for various reasons, can't always provide. Plus, they can be programmed to give consistently empathetic responses, which can be incredibly validating.
But isn't there a worry, the flip side, that these AI relationships might end up replacing real human connection? Or maybe lead to unrealistic expectations about how messy and complicated human interactions actually are?
That is a huge concern, a very valid and important one to keep front and center.
How do we navigate that?
It's about balance, isn't it? While AI companions can offer valuable support, relying on them too heavily could absolutely hinder the development and nurturing of essential real-world human relationships. Finding that healthy integration is key.
Okay, so let's talk about how developers are trying to build these genuine connections. Insofar as AI can, you mentioned empathy. How are they trying to bake empathy into these companions?
Empathy is seen as pretty vital for fostering those more meaningful emotional bonds. So developers are working on programming these systems to first recognize emotional cues in what the user types or says.
Analyzing language.
Yeah, analyzing text patterns, sentiment analysis, figuring out the likely emotional state behind the words. Potentially other cues in the future, like tone of voice if it's spoken interaction. And then, based on that analysis, the AI tailors its response to try and demonstrate understanding and offer appropriate support. It's trying to mirror empathetic human interaction.
And this isn't just a fixed set of rules, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned fine-tuning. Does it learn over time?
Exactly. Machine learning is crucial here. The AI learns from countless interactions, not just with one user, but across its user base, ideally while protecting privacy.
To get better at being empathetic.
To improve its empathetic responses, yes. And maybe even begin to anticipate a user's emotional needs based on past conversations. The ultimate goal is to offer validation and support that feels authentic and helpful, especially during difficult times, using techniques like natural language processing, sentiment analysis, all that good stuff.
Okay, let's pivot back to the potential upside. For the listener thinking, okay, what's in it for me or people I know? What are the key benefits AI companions could offer? Let's summarize those.
Right, the potential advantage. Well, number one is probably combating loneliness.
That 247 availability you mentioned.
Exactly. Always having someone to interact with, engaging in conversations that feel meaningful, ideally, and the AI can remember past interactions, which builds that sense of continuity, that shared history we talked about.
Especially important for.
Particularly beneficial, potentially, for older adults, people living alone, maybe those with limited mobility. It could offer varied social experiences they might otherwise miss.
Okay, what else? Benefit number 2.
Social skill building. This is an interesting one.
How so?
Providing a safe space to practice conversation, active listening, even empathy, without the real-world consequences or anxieties that sometimes come with human interaction.
So you can practice without fear of judgment.
Precisely. And the AI could even offer immediate, gentle feedback on communication style. For someone with social anxiety, for instance, it could be a valuable stepping stone towards more comfortable human relationships or just broadening social perspectives.
Interesting. And a third key benefit.
Enhancing mental health and well-being. We touched on this.
Consistent support.
Yes, consistent emotional support. A safe, non-judgmental space to express feelings. Some companions are even being programmed with basic techniques drawn from things like cognitive behavioral therapy.
Good guided exercises.
Could be. Tracking moods, identifying negative thought patterns. Again, not replacing therapy, but potentially offering supplementary support, especially for people in remote areas or those facing barriers to accessing traditional services.
Those are some pretty significant potential upsides. But, as always, we have to circle back to the challenges and those ethical concerns. They feel really critical here. We touched on them, but let's dig a bit deeper into the main ones. Privacy and data security seem huge.
Oh, absolutely paramount. These companions, by their very nature, are designed to gather vast amounts of incredibly personal data.
Our conversations, preferences.
Our emotions, our vulnerabilities, potentially. So ensuring the privacy and security of that data is non-negotiable.
What does that involve practically?
It means robust encryption, secure data storage, clear policies on how data is used and who accesses it. Crucially, users need control the ability to see their data, delete it, maybe take it elsewhere.
Transparency.
Complete transparency, and regular independent security audits to find and fix vulnerabilities before they're exploited. It's a massive responsibility for the companies involved.
Okay, beyond data security.
Yeah.
What about misuse? Or
Yeah.
unintended negative consequences? You mentioned unhealthy attachments earlier. Let's unpack that risk a bit more.
Yeah, it's a really complex area. Because these AIs learn and adapt, there's a definite risk that users could develop unhealthy dependencies.
Relying on the AI too much.
Yes, or maybe even using the AI in ways that reinforce negative thought patterns or behaviors. Narcissism, maybe, or avoiding difficult real-world interactions. This is especially concerning for individuals who might already be vulnerable.
So what's the solution? Safeguards.
Developers need to build in safeguards, definitely, trying to prevent the AI from encouraging harmful actions or giving biased advice. But it's not just technical. We also need education.
Educating users.
Yeah, about what a healthy relationship with an AI looks like. What are realistic expectations? Where are the boundaries? And maybe down the line, we even need psychological assessments looking at the long-term effects of deep engagement with these companions.
Wow. Okay, one more ethical dimension. As these AI entities get more and more sophisticated, more human-like, do we need to think about how we treat them, even if they aren't alive?
That's a really thought-provoking question, and it's starting to come up more in ethical discussions.
Does it matter if we're mean to a chatbot?
Well, current AI isn't sentient, it doesn't have feelings, but its interactions are becoming incredibly sophisticated. So questions arise. Do we need guidelines for development? And consider, say, the appropriate level of emotional attachment.
Setting boundaries for the human side.
Yes. And maintaining transparency. Users should always know they're interacting with an AI, not a person.
Yeah.
That helps manage expectations, prevents blurring lines that could be harmful later.
So it's about managing the human psychology around it.
Exactly. And we need ongoing research into those psychological effects. How does deep AI companionship impact us? That research will be crucial for informing ethical guidelines and best practices moving forward.
Okay, so bringing this all together then, it really feels like AI companions are a significant leap beyond just basic chatbots or assistants.
Definitely a different category.
It's a field evolving incredibly quickly with this genuine potential, it seems, to offer companionship, support, maybe even contribute positively to well-being in ways we're really only just starting to understand.
That sums it up pretty well, I think. The technology holds truly exciting possibilities,
But, as we've spent a lot of time discussing, it also brings these significant ethical, societal, and psychological questions to the table.
absolutely. Questions that need really careful, thoughtful consideration as these technologies become more integrated into our daily lives. It's not just about can we build it, but should we, and how should we?
Which brings us, I suppose, to our final thought for listeners to mull over. As these AI companions do become more present, more sophisticated, more woven into the fabric of our lives,
Yeah.
how might our fundamental understanding of what a relationship is, what connection means, how might our understanding of ourselves even, how might all that evolve? It really makes you think about that delicate balance, doesn't it, between harnessing the potential benefits and navigating the potential pitfalls of these really powerful emerging technologies.
A lot to consider.
Indeed. Thanks for digging into this deep dive with us today.